Hi, welcome to the I've Never Met a Woman Architect Before podcast with Michelle Grace Hotto Architect. I'm Michelle, and my guest today is Lee Bay, architecture critic for the Chicago Sun-Times and author. Today's episode is sponsored by ALW Architectural Lighting Works of LMPG Incorporated. At ALW, we illuminate spaces with purpose and precision. As a leader in architectural lighting, we design and manufacture innovative linear, cylinder, ring, and custom luminaires that elevate every environment, from workplace to hospitality, education to healthcare. Our expertise lies in blending performance, aesthetics, and flexibility, delivering lighting that inspires designers and empowers vision. ALW, illuminating your next project. Lee Bay is architecture critic for the Chicago Sun-Times and ABC 7 News Chicago. His column covers the Chicago area's built environment and the architectural, political, racial, and historical forces that shape it. He was a member of the Sun-Times editorial board for 6 years, where he wrote editorials on city governance, neighborhood development, politics, and urban planning. Bay is the author of the much-praised book, Southern Exposure, The Overlooked Architecture of Chicago's South Side, Northwestern University Press, 2019, which showcases his architectural photography and social commentary. He was also the host of the public television special, Building Blocks, The Architecture of Chicago's South Side, which aired on WTTW in 2023. Bay earned a 2023 Midwest Emmy nomination for his work on the program. He is also an on-demand speaker and media commentator on the subject of architecture, urban planning, Chicago history, and late 20th century Black history and culture. Bay is an adjunct professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology College of Architecture, a recipient of the 2021 Julius Shulman Institute Excellence in Photography Award and the 2019 Distinguished Service Award by the Chicago chapter of the American Institute of Architects. Bay is currently working on a book that documents the architecture of Chicago's West Side. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And I had the pleasure of listening to him speak. I don't know what to say when you actually see the person speak, right? I attended the lecture for the AIA Crayon Symposium in Chicago, which that was the first time that I was in Chicago, which I love Chicago. I just think it's great. And you had an amazing presentation. So
Thank you.
So what's up? What is going on in your life?
Well, work continues, of course. The book continues, the West Side book. But other than that, enjoying the fall. Fall is a great time in Chicago. The colors are all out. And I mean, kind of enjoying that and able to get out and take some photographs from time to time that are not work related, not book related. So that's about it.
Yeah. And I mean, this week was really busy for you because you introduced Tom Kundig, who I know for his book earlier in the week. And then did you go by the Obama library with Billington?
I did. Billy's great. And she and I have known each other and I would guess about a decade or more, ever since they did the Logan Center in Chicago, Billy and Todd. And so she happened to be in town, and I said, well, the Obama people said, well, come by and take a tour. So we did.
That's great. So how does it look on the inside? I mean, I've seen some photos on the outside, but I mean, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited.
It's still sort of coming together on the inside, and you probably know that the library is met with a bit of design controversy here in Chicago because it's built on an existing park designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, so an historic park, and the tower that the sort of the signature piece of the library is quite tall, particularly for the South Side, where the tallest tower might be, 100 feet, 150 feet. And this one is better than 200, so it's pretty tall. The inside, you get a better sense. It's still kind of coming together, but I could get a better sense. I got to write something between now and 5 days from now, but I'm getting you can get a better sense of why the outside looks the way it does. It looks quite unconventional, but the inside kind of explains the reason why the outside looks the way it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Todd and Billy. I do have a picture that Todd took of us, which you can kind of Billy and two other women architects in San Diego when they were here and they were speaking at the neurosciences. And of course I'm a fan of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. So I'm like looking forward to seeing the library.
Yeah, it should be done spring or summer of next year, they tell me.
2026?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. I'll make the trip. So what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
Oddly enough, literally right across the street from the Obama Library, there is the Museum of Science and Industry, which is a remaining building from the 1893 World's Fair, turned into a museum, by Julius Rosenwald, the CEO, president of Sears, in 1931 or so. And I'm a South Sider, and I grew up on the South Side. And the way home was often down Lakeshore Drive and curving around the Museum of Science and Industry. So there's these, the Porch of Maidens staring at you as you went by what was then Cornell Avenue, which was and the Porch of Maidens is like a direct copy of the Greek temple on the Acropolis. The ladies, they were serving as columns, holding up the porch. And I just, and I was just fascinated by that. As far back as I can remember, that's probably the earliest memory of architecture.
The caryatids.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Any other first recollection?
Well,
how old were you then?
Oh, I couldn't have been, I had to be 4 or 5 years old. I can remember sitting in the back seat of the car. My father, and to some extent, my mother as well, my late father, my late mother, liked buildings. And, we would always go around the city looking at houses they wanted to buy or checking out various things. And along the way, you're kids, you're kind of curious. So what is that? Or how did that get here? And more often than not, they'd have an answer. Now, when you're a kid, you don't appreciate the value of that. And it wasn't until I had my own children and began to find I was doing the same thing, showing them buildings around the city, that I thought, well, there's something interesting here. And then by this time I'm grown, I'm at the Sun Times, and there was I don't know if I'm getting ahead of the story too much. There was I used to cover hard news at the Sun Times, and I wanted a change. And the editor at the time, this is back in 95, 96, liked architecture and wanted to create an architecture beat. And I asked for it just to see what would happen, and ended up getting the beat, and it opened up this whole new path for me.
I mean, that's not typical, right? Don't people kind of come into it because they have like a background in architecture and then they become critics?
They often,
yeah,
you're right. They often, my good buddy and friend Blair came in from the Tribune, went to school for, I think, environmental architecture at Harvard or Yale. I can't remember which one. Sorry, Blair. But most times you come to that beat with some kind of formal knowledge of architecture, or at the very least art or urban planning.
Yeah.
And I came into it with none of that. But what I did have, is being a native Chicagoan, understanding that politics plays a role in everything, and that preservation, particularly, was very, people here are very interested in preservation. So with those rudiments of what I knew, I kind of grew the beat from there, and I got to say, the architects in town, some of the finest in the world, Adrian Smith, Helmut Jahn, and others, when they saw that they sometimes had a person covering architecture, they would invite me to the offices. Let me tell you what we're doing. Let me show you. If you got any questions, ask me. And that's kind of how I learned what I learned.
I think that probably relates to the general public, probably better than a lot of people that, I mean, right, we have our term arca speak, right? Where we're talking about things that people are like, what are they even talking about? Where you probably gave like because of your reporting skills and writing skills with that, you were kind of better equipped, can I say, to to be able to like explain to the and kind of have that affinity. They probably like that better than somebody speaking to them from an architectural, you know, whatever architectural point of view.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, the thing about the beat when I had it the first time in those early days was that my stuff appeared on the news pages. So we had to have a news peg, which was fantastic. Um,
Mhm.
and then all the other things I knew Chicagoans like into it. So rather than writing about a building being beautiful or not, and that's not what we do in Chicago at either paper. The Sun-Times,
Yeah.
we really write about the forces, and that create whatever did get built, didn't get built, or got preserved, or didn't get preserved. And that seems to be
Yeah.
the sweet spot here.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good way to do I think that's a good way to do it. I mean, yeah. Um, so what are your what three classic buildings do you like and why?
Classic buildings in Chicago. Um,
Anywhere. It didn't have to be Chicago, but yeah.
well, it helps. It helps, right? Of the ones here. Although this is the one I should have sent you photographs of these, but I'm finding that I'm liking a building called the Daily. Well, it's 2 North Riverside Plaza. It's the old Daily News building. It's right on
Okay.
the river. A beautiful Art Deco slab of a building with a plaza that faces the river. I'm finding that I'm liking that building a lot more. Built in 1930. I think it's Graham Anderson, Probst, and White. I'm liking that building a lot these days. I also like Roby House, Frank Lloyd Wright's Roby House in Hyde Park
Mm.
on the University of Chicago campus. And, although I don't think of modernist buildings as classical buildings, they really are. I mean,
Oh yeah.
those,
Yeah,
those,
they are.
those steel and glass towers now are older than the Art Deco buildings were, in the 70s. So
Mm.
I think that, John Hancock building, of course, great obelisk of a building with those X bracings that run up the side, and Lake Point Tower, which I think I did send you a photograph of, which is
Mhm.
this great building from 1968. It's kind of a sensuously curved tower with three curved parts that sits on a plaza designed by landscape architect an elevated plaza designed by landscape architect Alfred Caldwell. And it
Okay.
just sort of sits out there east of Lakeshore Drive, and it's a beauty still.
Uh-huh. Um, so what do you like about collaborating with architects in architecture, or what do you like about writing about architecture, I guess?
What I like about writing about architecture in the paper, because so I did it for those 5 years, then left architecture to work everywhere in the world, and came back to the Sun Times in 2019 just to write on the editorial page. And in fact, when I came back, I had two provisions. One is I would write part time, and two is I didn't want to write about architecture. And then what happens in the years that follow, and becoming full time and writing about architecture. But what I like about it is, particularly in this city, is that people really, really care about it. I mean, they care about sports and the weather. That's the one thing. The second thing is, um, I about the beat and what the Sun Times has given me the freedom to do both times, but particularly now, is to be able to write about architecture in a way that also embraces culture and uh, politics and race and city development and whatever is happening at City Hall at any given moment. So then becomes this kind of record of what we're building. It becomes a record of the city,
Yeah.
hopefully, through
Yeah.
what we build.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, there's definitely that social aspect that we are, right. I mean, they kind of say like art is is a picture of society at that time. And I definitely think that architecture is kind of a picture,
It
or the
is.
physical, yeah, the physical manifest of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so what about the TV show then? I mean, it's the news, right? But it's like your spot on the news.
It's a good spot. ABC 7, as you mentioned, and usually almost all exclusively, it's whatever I'm writing at the time, have written a column, or it's what I'm expecting. So I sit down with two anchors, and they basically ask me questions based on what I've written or what they know I'm going to write based on what I've told them. And
Uh-huh.
the segments are usually about 5 or 6 minutes. So it's a big chunk that appears on the online broadcast. So while others
Oh,
at the
okay.
evening, I think when others are watching whatever comes on at, I guess, would it be 5:30 your time after the local news goes off? It's 6:30 our time. So when you're watching on a regular television,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah. I don't even know what that regular television is like, but
neither not anymore. And here, it goes off and Wheel of Fortune comes on. But if you're online, it stays
it's
on the news, and you can hear me talking about it. Um, and
that's a key spot right there, right after Wheel of Fortune. It's a very
not,
good spot.
it's not bad. It's not bad. Um, what may happen, probably what's sort of beginning to happen is the Chicago Sun-Times is also owned by a nonprofit entity called Chicago Public Media. It's our and Chicago Public Media has operated our public radio station WBEZ, and they are enamored with TikTok. To me, it's for the young folk. I'm 60. I'm not the young folk, that young at least. And they had me come on. They made me do a TikTok on an event here called Open House Chicago. It happened last month. It's when the Chicago Architecture Foundation. You guys have one there.
We have an open house, San Diego. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So it's very similar, right? So they had me come on and talk about 5 buildings, and I thought no one's going to watch this. It turned to be one of the most watched things of the month. People were emailing about this. So now it's like you got to do it again. So what you'll see next week is, and I think you may have seen a photograph. You may have noticed a photograph of me in a hard hat standing outside the Obama
Yes,
presidential suite.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
that's the next TikTok is me
Okay, okay,
talking about
okay.
the OPC. So you know, there's that too. Mhm.
That's funny. That's funny. So is your daughter like is your daughter helping you with the TikToks or
No, no, no.
no? Okay.
I'd have to pay them if they did. The paper does it. So the newspaper, either the photographer for who I'm assigned with, who's shooting the
Oh,
stills for the story, which is the case with the OPC, they do it. They make the video, or with the one that everyone watched from Open House Chicago, you just do it
uh,
right in the newsroom. There's a guy who sits up on a camera on a camera phone, and you read a kind of like from a teleprompter. For the one in the field that I did for OPC, I just had to riff. I had to kind of like do it like a news broadcast. There were no words for me to read, but so yeah,
there's
I must
music.
admit,
There's music. Is there music? Music and dancing or just you speaking?
just
Right.
me speaking. Good
Yeah.
Lord, but who knows what they'll do with this one from the OPC? I don't. Hopefully, there's. Well, I'm not dancing, so hopefully, they won't add any music to it either.
That's great. Um, so what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
Well, I think, good question. I think two things. I think that I think if anything about what's happened at the White House, the destruction of the East Wing has shown us is that we have to tighten up the preservation mechanisms, particularly for federal buildings, uh, wherever they may be, but particularly in Washington D.C. And I think that we have a pretty strong landmarks ordinance here. So if you get the plaque, you virtually can't tear the building down or alter it.
Oh yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think in some places the plaque is ceremonial. I think that we may have to nationwide look at that. But I think beyond preservation, I think that we have to, as sustainable architecture approach, does this. But I think that we have, in terms of what we build and how we plan cities, we have to plan them and preserve them and buildings as well in harmony with, in better harmony with the client or with the climate. Um, floods, fires, all these kind of things, landscapes that that used to be, at least in Illinois, that you'd find in central Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
You begin to find them in Chicago now.
Mm-hmm.
There's been this creep as as the earth warms, and we have to address that one way or
Mm-hmm.
another. We are, but we really need to, and it has to be done not only locally and statewide, but there has to be some federal intervention, thought, planning around how we build this country. If what we build and if what we build and ours staying in it, if those two things are to survive, we have to figure this thing out.
Yeah. So has the lake or the Chicago River, right, which is fed by that, but has it changed at all? Like, is it going down? Then would it be going down? Right, it wouldn't be, right, because it's.
Well, it depends on what era we're in. I mean, the Lake Michigan, especially because our lake, our river flows backwards, right? So the
Okay.
Chicago River is supposed, in any place else that the good Lord has created, the river flows into the lake, except Chicago, where we made ours go the other way to keep the lake clean. When we used to put foul things into the river, right? And so it still flows backwards. But the lake is. He's beginning to rise again a little bit. I mean, we went through a season, a couple of decades where lake levels had dropped. I remember when I was in high school into college, so we're talking about 83, 84, there were renderings in the paper, fanciful renderings with the Sears Tower up to its neck in lake water because the lake was, and then it goes back down, went back down in the 80s and 90s. But the lake level is a concern now. And the city is thinking about redoing Lakeshore Drive, its scenic, famous roadway along the lake. And part of what gets built, particularly in this northern section of Lakeshore Drive, the Sabo Lakeshore Drive, now that is being considered to be rebuilt, is parkland and other things that mitigate flooding. The river, particularly downtown, something similar. We have a thing called the River Walk. This has become this beautiful amenity along the south bank of the main branch of the Chicago River. And Carol Ross Barney, one of the national great lights that architecture that are in the city.
Yeah.
She designed the walkways in various places so that it could be flooded. She's not fighting the river. She's not building a dam or anything, a wall. She's like, let the water come in, but it's designed in a way so it'll flow back out when the water goes down and nothing's damaged. So it's that kind of thought, I think, that has to be applied everywhere.
Yeah. I did. We went on the river. Did you go on the river? I mean, I'm sure you've been on it a million times. Did you go on it with AIA Cran when we were there?
I did not. I got the invite and was going to go, but I didn't go.
Yes. There's a lot of food. There's always a lot of food at AIA.
Oh yeah.
It's nonstop feeding. We've just eaten lunch and then we get on this thing and it's like, oh my gosh, there's like more food. And then we're supposed to go back for cocktail hour and more food and then dinner's out.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah. So, but it was nice. It was nice taking that. And then the person that used to be in charge, he used to be executive director for AIA San Diego, but he was in Chicago and actually was one of the people that started that. Bastian Boma started.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was one of the people that started that, and then he came to AIA San Diego, and I think he might be in Nevada now or something like that, or maybe he's back here. I don't know. Yeah. So is there anything else? Do you want to talk about anything else about your book? I know I have your one book, the book, which I actually purchased it at the Farnsworth House.
There's no better place to buy a book than Farnsworth House. It's a beautiful place. I've been meaning to go out there and sign some for them, just so they can have some signed ones around.
No, that'd be great because I wanted to sign. Now I can't. Now I can't. Like, I know that I brought it back to me, and I can't find it, and so maybe I'm just gonna have to buy another one and just have you sign that one. Yeah, yeah. And then the one with and so you're working on this other book.
Yes, on the west side. So while
Okay.
the south side book, Southern Exposure, looked at the
Hmm.
um, sort of underexposed architecture of Chicago's vast South Side. The West Side book does a similar thing, except it has more West Siders talking in it. In Southern Exposure, I'm doing talking because I'm a South Sider, but having
Hmm.
yeah, but if the West Side, if the South Side, if the architecture of Chicago's South Side is a mystery to many people who don't live on the South Side, the West Side is even more so because you know, both of these places, West Side and the South Side, have been historically places where the rest of the city, if you are not black, is kind of told not to go there. There's nothing there. Don't you know? I can remember even in my adult years where tourist maps wouldn't even include the South Side. The
Wow.
tourist map would have the whole city, and then it would just turn dark south of 23rd Street all the way to the 100 blocks all the way to the end of the southern end of the city, similar to the west side. Um, but
Yeah.
but that's beginning to change now. And the west side, many people know the west side. They know it all. Is this was the place that took the brunt of the rioting after Martin Luther King died was killed back in '68, and many of those areas have not been rebuilt, or they've been slow to be rebuilt, even though they're in the shadow of downtown. You could stand on the corner of, if you know Chicago, Madison and Pulaski, for instance, which is 36 blocks west of downtown, and you can stare at the side of the Sears Tower. It's that close, but development hasn't come in yet. But as I write this book, not because of it, but as it just happened to be at the same time, there is development happening and proposed. Uh,
Hmm.
the families that own the Chicago Bulls and the United Center, the place where they play, have this $7 billion plan uh, for areas around to rehab and essentially build a new community
Uh-huh.
there on the west side. So things are happening. So it's just a matter of you know drawing attention to what's going to be going on, but also calling attention to this great wealth of architecture that's there, historic
Yeah.
architecture that people should pay more attention to.
Yeah. 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 No, that sounds great. And I mean, I'm sure housing, right? I mean, do you have enough housing in Chicago or not? Is it? I mean, I know it's a little bit less expensive. You get like beautiful places for less than you do, here, but is there still a shortage of housing there?
Of affordable housing. I think,
Okay.
particularly if you want to own a house, if you're young, I bought my first house back in the old days. I may have been 32. Now I think the average age is well past 40 for people in Chicago, people buying their first places because affordability is a problem. And also affordability in place. How do I say this? I think that hot neighborhoods, the ones that everyone wants to live, the prices there are just incredible. I mean, and these are
Huh.
neighborhoods that maybe 20 years ago were close to downtown, but we're still still down on their luck a little bit. And now these places you can't even you can't even touch them for less than
Hmm.
7, 8, 900,000, which is a lot for
Yeah.
Chicago, right? Um, I think that if you get further out from the city, particularly further out on the south side, it gets cheaper, remarkably so. Except there often are stores and other amenities that you would want to have in the community that you live. So the city
Yeah.
has to figure out that balance. It's beginning to build in these areas,
Hmm.
build affordable housing, but it's bringing with it retail and other things along with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, of course, there's always, right, like, artists, right? We move, we move into an area and we make it great. And then we like out, it's like we can't afford it anymore. But
Mhm,
I was
mhm.
just, I was just in Venice Beach and we lived in Venice Beach from 89 to 99, right? And I went there on Monday and it's like I mean, it's gentrified. I mean, I was just talking to another person. I'm like, yeah, it's totally different. Like when we were there, it was still there were a lot of different architecture offices there were artists, I mean, and now like the place, like I had a little studio with another person that was around, right off of Abbot Kinney.
Mhm.
And it was 500 square feet and we paid $500 a month, right? So,
Wow.
and then that was like maybe in 96. And then when I moved out in 98, the new property manager had given us 30 days notice and doubled the rent. And then it was like $1,000 a month. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because I'd been paying $250 a month. And I just had a second kid. And we lived down the street. We were renting down the street from that. And I just said, forget it. I'm just going to move into the house. I'm not going to get I'm not going to like pay rent for anything else. And now it's part of, there's a boutique that's on Abbot Kinney, and now they're kind of using it as their overflow space. And so I asked the person that was there, I said, how much is it now? And I said, what is it? She's like, oh yeah, it's probably 5,000, And so just I'm like 5,000, yeah, 5,000 for for 500.
That's crazy.
And it's exactly the same as it was. I mean, they painted the inside and the outside, but otherwise, same exact thing. Just walls around the toilet in the back. It's with a sink. Same exact. Nothing is in. It's kind of an old turn of the century building from
Sure.
Venice, like one of the original buildings. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so you're kind of like, oh, it's a nice, it's a nice area, but it's just so, there's a J. Crew, not to totally knock J. Crew, but it's like before there would have been right? There would have been no big stores on that thing. And one of my friends was like, oh yeah, it was kind of like whether it was a written or an unwritten rule, it was just that there weren't going to be any of these stores now, right? It was going to be mom and pop stores, mom and pop boutiques, stuff like that. Little coffee places, and I said, oh, now, there's, Blue Bottle coffee. Can't get a coffee for under, $7 to pay tip, $8.
Jeez.
Here it is. And that was just a regular dark brew, right? It's like $8 for coffee. And and always and it's it's just totally changed. I mean, now there he was kind of saying, yeah, it's like the new Melrose, which we would have never, but and so people are kind of like, well, how is it now? And I said, well, they're like, oh, is it safe? I'm like, oh no, it's probably safe than it was before, but it's not. It's just not the same. It's like there's less of that creative, artistic vibe, right? It's more of like a shopping mall, So, yeah.
I know the feeling. Here in Chicago, particularly on the South Side, there's the Hyde Park community. This is where the University of Chicago is. And when I was a teenager, in the 80s, early 80s, and my fantasy would be I was going to be a writer, and I was going to have this creative wife, and we were going to live in one of those cool places that were really cheap. And that would be impossible now, right? I mean, just impossible. And many of the cool places that used to be along our 53rd Street in Hyde Park, it's chains and other things. And what's lost in all that, and maybe this does go a little bit far afield of architecture, but not urban planning, is that what's lost in all that is some of the things that give a neighborhood or a city its kind of cultural edge, in a good way. I mean, musicians begin to leave, and artists begin to leave, and then the exhibition places begin to leave, and and diffuses across the city. It's supposed to be, my fear here in Pullman, which is where I live now. This was originally a company town that George Pullman built, lock, stock, and barrel for his employees, who built the Pullman train car.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been here, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years. And it was, it's like a third old timers who preserved the community and never left. And maybe, a third Black and a third Latino, predominantly Mexicans, who had been here to work in the factory. Their fathers and grandfathers were. And as Pullman gets more attention and shine, I'm noticing that, we're getting a little more. We have a neighborhood here that's Wicker Park, called Wicker Park, and it's kind of like it is a neighborhood, but it's also like a term to describe when a neighborhood gentrifies. Oh, it's going to be the next.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm seeing Wicker Park types. I'm not just making that up. You ask a
Yeah.
new person, "Hey, where are you from?" Well, I was thinking about Wicker Park or one of the other neighborhoods around it, and couldn't afford it, so here I am out here. And so far though, it's been great. Artists are still here, creatives are still here, who are always here, and is drawing more like that. But you always fear, particularly because the housing here is affordable. You always fear that flip, that switch flips, and all of a sudden you're someplace else without
Yeah,
having.
yeah. I mean, we couldn't, when we first moved in, you maybe could buy something for like 250,000 in Venice. You could buy a place for 250,000, in like 1989, maybe 92, and then 94, it just started. And then in 98, we were like, you know what, like Jane Fonda was showing her stepson the house across the street.
So it's over. It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Forget it. And it was like a substandard lot. I mean, the alleyway kind of like cut the corner of it, it was tiny house. And we're like, forget it. We're never. But the nice thing is that the people that we rented from, they had kind of always said like, oh, why don't you guys do a plan for us, like to redevelop this lot? Because, it's like, and we're like, oh my gosh, because they were the old vacation bungalows, and we as architects, it's like, yeah, I get it. We're supposed to be, developing stuff, but it's like, no, it's just like, there are all these like cute little vacation bungalows that were there from, 1920, back when it was just this vacation place that people would come to, and they were small, one of them was like 500 square feet. The other one that we moved into was like 900, there were no garages on it, right? Like, no, and then these little courtyards, in between. And it was kind of a community, we had like 1, 2, 3, 4. So there were like 4 of these little vacation, in this courtyard, and I said, yeah, it's still there. And people were like, wow, it's still there. And I said, oh, yeah, it's still there. And and the woman that we ran into, I mean, her husband passed away, but she's still there too. So I mean, it's kind of nice. And like I don't, and of course it's like $4 million for that. Right. It's $4 million for these 2 lots that are like 25 feet wide, by like 75 feet, these 2 lots together are like $4 million, and so I said, yeah, it's like the second that, that it goes on to somebody else, it's just probably, going to be cleared and then, but, for now, it's like, oh, it's nice that it's still there,
True.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No. This has been a great
Okay.
conversation, and no, I appreciate that. I mean, I think if I think that if people are I think how can I say? I mean, I think people should become more active and involved in their communities and what gets built, what gets planned. Those built
Mhm.
meetings like plan commission meetings and zoning meetings, which seem boring as all get out to think about. This is the future of your community being laid out before you. Pay attention to those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we're talking about slips up on us, right?
No,
Uh,
no, no, exactly. And I mean, I was a planning commissioner here in the city where I live because, we moved to San Diego because, I said, well, we moved, they said, oh, why did you move to San Diego? It's like, oh my gosh, La Mesa after Venice. I said, well, I have been in La Mesa, but, we wanted our daughter to go to public schools. We were always like, we wanted to go to public schools. We wanted to be able to, afford to buy a house. And they were like, well, San Diego. And I'm like, well, no, we bought our house for $190,000 in '99.
wow.
So it's like it was affordable.
Mhm.
And but then people started, it's like people started to move down here. And my brother, I can remember my brother and my sister-in-law, the time that they were like, oh, we're gonna wait until it comes down. And I'm like, it is not coming down. Like, you better buy now. And they bought like 6 months after us, and they got less of a house for more money, even in that 6 months. But I was a planning commissioner here for 12 years. And so a lot of times, people will see something go up and they'll be like, oh, we were never told. And I'm like, no, we have planning commission meetings,
Sure do.
and they're at night, they're like at 7 o'clock at night. And I said, meanwhile, there'll be like two people there,
Mhm.
two people will be there in the chambers, and I said, so, come to like review it. It'll just be the applicants are the only people that are sitting there, waiting to speak. And I said, yeah, just really get involved, really get, then you can at least know what's going on and know. And, people said like, oh, when they were redoing all of the when they started selling pot here and having all of the pot shops,
Yeah.
people said, oh, do a lot of people show up to those meetings? I said, no, there's more people that show up to affordable housing
Uh,
hearings than they do to pot shop. Pot shop, hardly anybody shows up except for the people that were competing for that lot
sure.
and the conditional use permit for that thing, so people from other pot shops would show up and and protest, but it was more about, but then once the state mandated that you had to have a lot, then it didn't even come in front of us. So a lot of times, well, why didn't you stop that? Or right? And I'm like, well, one, I think that we need to have that. I said, I think we need to have affordable housing because you can't buy a house for 190,000 anymore, and people, even people making a decent amount of money are not able to afford anything. It's like they can't afford, a house. I mean, my daughter, she's an occupational therapist now. She doesn't know when she's ever going to be able to afford a house, So,
Mhm.
yeah, at least not by herself, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lee.
Thank
I'll
you.
I'll um I'll turn off the thing and then I'll say goodbye. So, thanks.
Thank you. That's a great picture.
I know. Oh my gosh. I just can't find. Yeah, I'll just have to. Okay. Well, oh, here it is, right here.